Playbook. It is my pleasure to welcome Ryan Reichert. He's a professional speaker, mindset trainer, executive coach, author, and he's a podcaster based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Go Vikings. He empowers overwhelmed professionals to break free from limiting beliefs, discover their God given purpose, and pursue meaningful transformation. A born again believer in Jesus and a servant leader at heart, Ryan brings more than 4 decades of life experience to his work, moving seamlessly from small town America to global metropolitan markets. He served 23 years in the U.S. Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel after 4 combat deployments, and a leadership role as a foreign service director. After military service, Ryan translated his skills into the Fortune 500 world, gaining practical insight into corporate leadership, strategy, and high stakes decision making. Ryan, thanks for joining me tonight. It's my pleasure to have you.
Hey, Brent, thank you so very much for having me. Just truly grateful and blessed.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you end up in the U.S. Army?
Yeah, it's wild. Kind of, let's see if I can do the 90-second version. Both my grandfathers were in the Navy. My dad was in the Army in Vietnam, and GI Joe was really cool, I guess. So my best friend Pat and I would set up ambushes outside his house underneath the evergreen trees across the street from the school, and yeah, it was just something about it. And I wanted to go to West Point, but unfortunately, my freshman year in high school, I blew my knee out, and back in the early 90s, there wasn't waivers to get into West Point for that. So I found myself going to the University of North Dakota, like most of the family did, uh, growing up. And yeah, basically, I ran out of money a couple years in, and happened to do one of the military science classes to get an easy A, and there was a sign like, "Hey, see if you can want to sign up for a scholarship." And I went in and talked to Trudy, the secretary, who I think she still works there today. She's probably been doing it over 40 years. And it took a year, but waivers, doctors, boards, everything else made it in. And yeah, 23 years later, came out the other side as lieutenant colonel in the infantry, airborne ranger, and yeah, it was pretty wild and crazy, but I wouldn't change it for the world today.
Was there ever any thought of joining the Navy, or was it always, hey, I got bit by the
Oh,
Army bug?
great story here. So when I told my grandma that I joined the army, she said, "Ryan, honey, why would you ever do that? They have such ugly uniforms." And so my uncle retired as a captain. He married one of my aunts, and he had a long stint in the Navy there. And yeah, I can definitely say, you get around a bunch of SEALs and so on and so forth, and we all want to measure things and everything else. But yeah, I'm super happy to be from the Green Machine and everything else. But at the end of the day, in my humility, I can say that I love everybody under the sun. Because it's like it takes all of us to serve. You go to McDonald's across the street here, and somebody's serving you. Not that I'm a big McDonald's fan, but I'm just saying from a service standpoint, we all serve one way or another. So it's a different side volunteering to go out in harm's way, be it as a police officer, firefighter, first responder, EMT, nurse, doctor, wherever you're at. I mean, we're all serving, we're all doing, the Lord's work. It just looks a little different. And yeah, but in a previous life, I'd always say there was only one, and that was the Green Machine. So, but it's a little different today.
That's awesome. I actually, I'm a big reader, and yeah, I'm sure you've probably heard of it at this point. But I've been reading the Fort Bragg cartel book,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and I'm sure that's made some waves in y'all's community. But here's my thing: the good will always outweigh the bad, and there's always going to be bad in whatever profession you choose. You could shine the microscope in whatever, and there's going to be a bad somewhere.
Yeah.
But I have the utmost respect for the military, and but I'm always one of those people. I will do my research on everybody. Like it doesn't matter. Like if there's a good book out there, I'm going to read it regardless. And that was a
Yeah.
wild tale.
Well, I appreciate it in general, but yeah, I mean, I mean, I have many, not so proud moments in my life, and even in while I was wearing the uniform, definitely. Probably was not always above board in some of my decision making and so forth. Nor maybe stopping things from happening, right? Like, turning a blind eye. Or today I can't. I have to tell the truth and everything that I do. Otherwise, I go back to the dark side, unfortunately. And once you've lived in the light, you don't want to go back to the dark because it's so much. It's just beautiful every single day. Not that they're not hard days, but it's a different way to live. And so, yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you. A lot of guys will do their one or two tours of duty and get out. What made you decide that you wanted to go to the career route? And then, as a follow up, what made you decide to go the leadership route?
Yeah. Well, the first part of that one didn't. I got married actually before I commissioned. I had raised my right hand. Well, let's see. I had contracted the woman that I did marry, and now, unfortunately, I guess, former spouse today, a mother of my children. But yeah, I was like, hey, I'm joining the army in like 6 months. Just to let you know. Hope you're okay with that. It's kind of a package deal. And for her it was like, I'd never want to raise military brats, whatever that means, right? Like, because there's a dynamic that I could go on and on and on about how it's amazing. And when I look at the two beautiful independent young women that the two of us raised, obviously she give her more credit than anything, because I was gone a lot of I was gone over half our marriage. And the girls we could certainly probably go like, you missed this birthday, you missed that birthday, you weren't here this year, you weren't here that year. But in it was every 2 years we basically had a way of saying like, are we going to keep doing this? And after I got back from my first deployment to Afghanistan, we left to go to the captain's career course in Fort Benning, Georgia. And yeah, I was ready to do another year and then get out. We left Hawaii knowing that the boys were going to do a turn and burn, and I needed to go to the captain's career course as I was getting promoted to captain. And it was a rough dynamic from that perspective. So I actually asked, it was Brigadier General Caslin at the time, when I was ended up showing around Fort Benning. I was like, hey, sir, you've been doing this for like 30 years, or close to at that point. Like, how, why, keep, and he said the same thing that I just told you. Every 2 years, we would reassess where we're at, and here we are, and so that's just how it always was. Something would happen, So when I went to the captain's career course, still going to get out like, the next year. Well, where I went, I happened to have an amazing battalion commander. And it was like, you know what? I want to do another company command. And the Army had like a thing at the time, many captains were getting out. So they were trying to retain captains. I took a little bit of drug money, as we'd say in the business. And I stuck around for 3 more years, which put me at 8 years. And worked for another amazing battalion commander. And next thing you know, I was at 10 years. And we just kept rolling it over and over and over. And then pretty soon I was just like a family ordeal. We, be like, hey, the list came out for where we can go. Let's rack and stack them, pros and cons. I guess I was supposed to be the trump card, but when you have three girls in the house, it was always like, well, we want to go back to Hawaii, or we want to go see our friends in Washington State. And I'd obviously have a bleeding heart, and I'd want to go somewhere else and work for somebody else. And but it always worked out exactly how it was supposed to. And yeah, when I think about the second question, um, the more about the dynamics, I guess, of it with leadership is, where they say, leaders are born, not made. Well, you have to be born, obviously, to be made. So therefore, all leaders are born and not made, but then they're made because they're born. I was captain of the football team. I was this, I was that. I was the pulpit at church as a young, kid reading the Bible or reading scripture. I don't know. It's just in me, I guess, to be. My dad, was enlisted. My his father was an officer in World War II, and then my mom's dad was enlisted. He was a cook actually in World War II. So I mean, it wasn't overarching. I guess we had a family friend that was a full bird colonel when he retired. A few tours as a Marine in Vietnam, and maybe seeing his leadership styles, it's like, okay, well, he was an officer, so I think that's what I want to do. We had another gal growing up. She's about 4 years older than me that went to West Point. Um, had an amazing career. I think she's still in as far as I can recall. And so, I think it's just kind of like how you get the little bumper cars or the pinball, in life, and you have those around you that are doing things, and you're like, yeah, I could see doing that, or, so on and so forth. And then it happens, and here we are. So, yeah.
Let me ask you, for the people that's not veterans or in the military, when you promoted up, did you stay with your unit that you were already with, or did they assign you somewhere completely? Hey, you're going wherever we need you.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty well set. I mean, I could take you through, 20 odd years and come out as a second lieutenant. For myself, you go to Fort Benning, Georgia. Now it's like the Maneuver Center of Excellence and all that. But back in the day, it was the home of the infantry. And, so go to airborne school, ranger school, infantry officers basic course. And so you're at about 9 months by the time all that's done. And then you go to your first unit. Back then, it was 18 months. You'd be a first lieutenant. So when I got to my unit, I think I was there a few months and I pinned first lieutenant already. And then we went to Afghanistan. And upon returning from Afghanistan, I would have had 2 years, I think, in total, roughly. And from there, I left to go to the captain's career course. So got promoted to captain, went back to school. So infantry's captain's career course, about 6 months long. Left there, went out to Sand Hill at Fort Benning, and did infantry training brigade. So it was like the one station unit training. So for infantry, and I want to say armor now, but back then the guys would come and they would do all their training to become infantrymen as they were enlisted. And I did that for like a year and a half, commanded there, and then left to go to Fort Lewis, Washington, where I commanded a rifle company, a striker rifle company. So about every 2 years, roughly, you would definitely normally leave the installation and go somewhere else. About every year, you'd have a staff job, or if you're like a commander, it's between 18 and 24 months. It's a battalion commander, so lieutenant colonel, it's 24 months. There's boards and all the different things that come into play into all this. It's not just the strap your camouflage on and do this, that, and the other thing. There's a lot to it. Congress gets involved when we get promoted, and it's there's a lot of different things to it that you just go like, oh, okay, makes sense then. The regimented, very structured, systematic approach to things. Yeah, the movies certainly wouldn't do it justice. Let's put it that way.
So 23 years. What finally said it's time?
Yeah, so talking about like battalion command. So I retired as lieutenant colonel. Got picked up for that. So super grateful, obviously. But for me, it was talking about the family friend as a full colonel. I think you put it in your mind like definition of success is a full bird colonel. I was on the alternate list for battalion command, which would then, get selected into battalion command, execute successfully battalion command, get promoted to colonel. Being on the alternate list 2 times and not making it into battalion command, I was like, well, I could stick around for 8 more years, I guess, and so forth, and retire as lieutenant colonel. But it'd be just staff jobs, sitting behind a desk, no operational assignments. And for me, that just wasn't it. The family was, I think, ready to have our own lives, and make our own decisions. And yeah, so it was just time. And it was interesting because that would have happened probably, 3 or 4 years before I retired. You know roughly that like you're done, and or basically saying you're done. And that was tough. That was really hard. I really struggled with that. Like just knowing that was, everything that I've been doing since 1999. And I really struggled with that. I didn't have a clean breakaway from it all. And I've been dreaming a long time. I mean, full disclosure, my buddy out in Fort Lewis, Washington, we were stationed there a couple times, but the girls lived there for 5 or 6 years because I did, a deployment and then another deployment so they could stay there. We call it making a deal with the devil, which it really is when you start to think about maybe God's got a different plan for you and you're trying to control, you know, hey, like they like it here. It's friends, kind of family. But anyways, I had a buddy, he'd been wanting, since 2008, hey, you can come work for Edward Jones, like, you and me kind of thing. And it was every just like 2 years staying in the army. It was every 2 years. Yeah, maybe 2 years kind of thing. And so when we started getting real serious about it, probably around 2016, maybe, um, in 2019, we made the decision to last deployment, build a retirement house, move the family there, and I left on my last deployment. So it was a deal with the devil to make that one happen. And the little thing called COVID happened, and
Yep.
a lot of different things changed. Olympia, Washington changed quite a bit. Everything changed. Girls came back to Minnesota, where my former spouse is originally from, and the girls' best friends. Dad was retiring as well from the army, and they were retiring here close to Minneapolis. And I got the call of like, hey, we want to move and retire in Minnesota, not Washington. Wasn't a great time. 9 months into the deployment, wasn't the deployment I believed it was going to be. They never are, and it broke me. It broke me into a million pieces. Everything I'd hoped, dreamed. I was studying for all the boards when I get back. I could get all my financial advisor certifications, and it's gonna be great. Like working with your best friend, like couldn't beat that, right? And he'd already started shifting, his business to fit two advisors under one roof, and I love the good Lord, though. He's got such an amazing plan. So, obviously I had to tell Chris that wasn't going to happen. Decided we're going to move to Minnesota and retire here. Built a even bigger, badder, better retirement house, kind of thing with no plan, right? No, not knowing what the future holds, but let's build a big house and let's move. And the good Lord, he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And I got a great Fortune 500 job, when I retired and everything. But it didn't fill, I was empty. It didn't fill me back up with what I thought it was going to do. And yeah, in the end of it, we unfortunately, we're divorced today. Living in a little 2 bedroom apartment here with the dog, and I got a lot of things that I'm grateful for. Both my girls are in my life again. We went a bit of it through the divorce and stuff like that, where they weren't in my life, and started an amazing business. We can turn that table into the whole professional
Yeah, for
development side
sure.
of things.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
actually wanted to
yeah,
touch on that because you've kind of reinvented yourself, and
yeah,
your bio talks about it in that you had some struggles with addiction,
mhm,
and I think that's something that a lot of first responders also struggle with,
yeah,
just because they're very similar in nature, style of jobs. You're away from your
yeah,
family, obviously not on the same scale, but you're away from your family. You work weird hours. You see a lot of crazy stuff, and I know a lot of cops that turn to the bottle.
mhm,
Um, and they get so wrapped up in the identity of being a first responder that when they're done, they struggle.
yeah.
And I want to talk about how you turned around, and then now you've turned something that was a negative into a blossoming positive now. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I don't love to dwell in the negative because it's just part of the story. The dynamics of it, yeah, it's crazy. God willing, Thursday I'll have 2 years of sobriety, and
That's amazing.
it is. It really is. It's hard because my dad's a recovering alcoholic. He had 40 years back in March, super special. But as we were laughing before we hit record, it's hard to look at like I always looked at the negative side. It's like, as opposed to the positive. It was like the dude's been sober, since I was 6. And I couldn't. I saw like, why can't he drink like a normal person? Why can't like he be like everybody else's dad? Why? Well, you know what, Ryan? Because there's only one, you know, and there's only one of you. And so I guess for me, it was originally when I sobered up, it was like, okay, that's nice. Put the plug in the jug, but then what? It's just a symptom of the chaos you're just talking about. You see so much trauma and you see so much darkness, so much evil, and you become that if you don't have, something keeping you lit on the inside. You allow the darkness to fester inside you, grow, and so on and so forth. And so that's where I transformed the side of, for me, my spirituality is, extremely strong today. I mean, I teach, the acronym FOCUS: faith, opportunity, consistency, unconditional kindness, and the standard, or your standard. I don't always like to say your standard, because like your standard could be, you know, there's certain things you should live by or whatever to allow you to be healthy and active and be a member of society and so on and so forth. But I do like to say yours because it is yours. Like, I can't, tell Brent, you know, well, this is Ryan's standard, but Brent, you got to do it, kind of thing.
Yep.
It's one of those dynamics. And so, yeah, for me, it was, I still have the Fortune 5. This is where like life gets crazy, right? So, yeah, I separated, going through the divorce process. Kids are like, Dad, you're a mess, which I was. Like, I'm sure, I think myself today is kind of together, but I know I'm still all over the place, like ADHD and so forth. And trying to do the job, trying to rebuild my life. And I get laid off, and it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Sobriety is the greatest thing, but like when you think about external entities, I was like, man, talent management, no problem. Like, because I know something amazing is going to happen from this. And last December, I started, Our Protector LLC, which has turned into Our Protector Legendary Leadership Companies, which, being a North Dakotan, our motto is legendary. And, the legendary leadership comes from God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. That's just, one of those things. And, as a soldier, cool. Yeah, I raised my right hand. I volunteered, and so forth. So I'll take that as another side of it. But really, when it looks at it, I started writing, and it was just basically what I was going through. And, I was alone. I was afraid. I was scared. Thank goodness May, it's funny, she hasn't jumped on the screen. Sometimes she just has to come say hi to everybody. And, she kept me alive. I mean, there were so many days that, I'd struggled with suicidal ideation, throughout my life. And, it was one where, she saved me. She kept me going, every day when wasn't going to get off the couch. She'd be like, where do you want me to do with my business? Kind of thing. And so it was like, oh, okay, I'll take you out. And that's where it just kept driving the train. We'd walk around the block, then we walked around the neighborhood, then another neighborhood. I started getting back in shape. I gained about 50 pounds after I retired. Sloth had really, really crept in hard. And yeah, so we wrote God Only Knows the Devil Comes to You, Second Chance at Life, and that takes you through divorce, job loss, recovery, and just getting your life kind of back into perspective, a new perspective, a new way to see life, and lots of tools in there. And then the Icarus effect, the highs and lows of our emotions, we all have feelings, kind of takes that transition from being a boy to a man, and learn how to tell the truth, and be accountable for all the things that you were responsible for, but you weren't living in an accountable way. You weren't accepting reality, and so on and so forth. And that one's more kind of really kind of break you into a million pieces, so then you can actually be the phoenix, rise again. And so in that, kind of jam those two together and created the War of Purpose, Built to Break. And that's a course. It's an 11 module course that takes you through, I think 44 videos. I don't know how many different worksheets. And it's one of those that I look at it today and see who's used it and the case studies and so forth. And it's amazing what took me 18 months. Now we can have somebody get to in 90 days. And that to me
Well,
is like, you know, yeah.
we kind of talked about it, and that COVID changed a lot of things, but I also think it changed, the coaching profession into pushing it more into an electronic format. And so now, especially with these different platforms to where you can host your like educational services, is that it makes it more readily available to everybody. Because let's face it, first responders, military are very proud people, and they are more likely to do it sitting, in their recliner on their laptop than they are going to the office.
Right.
And so I think that, sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways, and I think that's a positive, to help people in their moments of need. And I've been in law enforcement going on 11 years now, and I tell people all the time I got out of law enforcement during COVID because I was burnt out.
Mhm.
Terrible time taking an insurance job that's fully commissioned during the middle of COVID. I failed at it. And for a year or two, I beat myself up over it because it didn't go well.
Mhm.
But now I look back on it, and I would have never got my master's degree. I've got 6 months left on my doctoral courses, and then I start my final project. Um, and I would have never came out of my comfort zone if I wouldn't have failed. And we all fail in life. It's very important how we respond to that failure and
Mhm.
bounce back from that. And I tell people all the time now, like, I'm gonna fail again at some point in my life. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, it's how I respond to that. And if we can get into these first responders, these military peoples before they make those decisions of, hey, I'm going to start drinking my life away, or hey, I'm rashly going to quit my job today. I think there is a, a modicum of where we can help these people out before they make those decisions. And I think what I'm trying to do and what you're doing, there's a space for that for us to help these people out, and I love that you're doing it.
No, I appreciate that, Brent. And thank you for your service. And I love your story too. I mean, I don't look at it. Somebody asked me that a couple months back about as a guy, probably late 30s, and he was kind of looking for, I think, some relationship advice since he hadn't found Miss Right yet. And he's like, well, I was just wanting to get some feedback. You had a failed marriage, and I said, no. I said, no, I didn't have a failed marriage. I had 25 years of a relationship with someone that we have two beautiful kids, and there were a lot of good things. We just didn't have the ability to keep it going. There was other things involved. I mean, however you want to look at it, right? And I look at all those as like the redirections, right? Like it's one to me, like hearing your story and knowing that, like you're like, well, give it to me. I mean, I tote my sobriety, if you want to call me an alcoholic, fantastic. Wear it like a badge of honor these days because like I know what my kryptonite is like from a symptom standpoint. I think of all the time, like Superman would play this game. All right, alter egos, Superman or Clark Kent, like it's the dynamic of for me, I was able to operate for how many years, and now my alter ego is like putting on the glasses and writing books, or coming up with a seminar to teach, allowing everybody to have some type of system in place to get them from point A to point B so they can see their way into getting their master's degree, getting their doctorate, like whatever it is, whatever it's supposed to be. That war of purpose for me today is what I realized is we're all going to have something that's going to break us. It's realizing though that in that brokenness, like the greatest thing's going to happen. I mean, I had a buddy last week text me saying, I lost my job, and I was like all excited for him, and he's like, "What, dude? You're sick." And I was like, "I can't wait to see what's going to happen because I know when like tragedy strikes, like greatness happens. It's just one of those that people just can't see that because it's what you focus on, kind of what I talked about before. Your focus like can create, you know, I mean, I went from being relatively healthy and 2020 to being, completely disabled by 2022, 2023, in such a way that our mind, like whatever you're focusing on, that's what you're going to become. And so it's, watch what you're looking at kind of thing, I guess, really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your books and let's talk about your coaching and how you're helping people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, super excited. Looking at the what date it is today. A couple weeks back, third book. It was a co-authorship with Jack Canfield called "The Living Truth." Super cool. So 12 of us got together. Started working with Jack. First two books. Had manuscripts done. Going it takes like 6 months. Kind of to get across the finish line. And had a retreat with him, and it was super cool. And then it was the opportunity arose, like you're like, hey, you want to join the group and write one of my last books? And I was like, what's it going to be called? And he said The Living Truth, and I was like, sold, because now I that's the only thing I can do is just tell the truth in everything that happens. And because my life was a lie for the most part, I was just running from whatever I was afraid of. And so that's the big one today with the books, is just being like, what are you afraid of? Let's get it out there on the table. Let's figure out like why, from the dynamics, start with why. I think Simon Sinek's kind of got that one figured out. And we just basically create, the you that's always been in there, but you've been focusing on something else, and then you haven't understood like what your real purpose is. It's like somebody who's like a dad, it's like, okay, like provide, protect, but then it's your kids, kind of thing. And, keeping that house right. And everyone today is always like, oh, like guys, all they do is work and they're broken, like all this, like, whoever I was before, I guess. And it's like, yeah, there's that dynamic, but then there's also the dynamic of um, the joy. If you can, I don't know how many hours I spent like staying after work drinking or going to the bar instead of coming home and spending time with the kids because I was like afraid of like being the perfect dad, like that. It's like, dude, like we're all imperfect, it's just remove those two letters or just say I am perfect and there you go, you're good to go. But yeah, to that end, it's pretty special. I'll love to tug your ear as I'm looking at the research side of the course, and looking at everybody else under the sun's like, well, got this accredited here, accredited there. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's where to go with this next, is to have it so it's off. I think of a war plan, kind of thing. It's off the shelf for everybody under the sun. It's like, oh, you're gonna leave the force or whatever in 6 months. All right, you got to go through this course before you can transition. Out of putting your badge and your pistol away, kind of thing. Or you're coming off the ambulance, like it's like you got to take this course, because the way I look at it and seeing, like I said, everyone that's gone through it so far, is it's just unbelievable. Like, I suppose it's when people say, well, I remember seeing you 2 years ago, dude, you were a train wreck, or 18 months ago, you were a train wreck. Um, I think of the same thing now when people go through the course. It's the same eaches of it, and it's just making contracts with yourself of like how you're going to live your life. And I think that's probably always like in the military. It was, you know, what oath did I swear every time I got promoted? And it's like it's a little different now because my spirituality is the most important thing. I think before, I was like a nationalist, right? Like, the flag was more important than anything else, and obviously rightly so from what I was doing, but you can't take that with you forever, kind of thing. It obviously ended on 1 July of 2022. So to that end, it's fun. I love it. I'm super excited, as we continue to work with folks. Next one's like working with the schools in the area to try to have a mentorship program, for the kids that want to show up, apply for it, write an essay, and everyone's like, oh, that sounds like nerd work. You're right. It is nerd work, and it's going to pay off big time, one day when you're a leader of this or a leader of that. And, that to me is where, how's the saying go? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I used to always be like, well, I don't know, because I'm not going to grow up. And it was like, because Peter Pan like didn't have to grow up. And now, yeah, I'm not going to grow up, but I can still be a man, with that childlike playfulness, just knowing that you have to tell the truth while you do it. That's all. That's the difference.
Well, and I think that first responders, military, we get so caught up in that mindset of tying us to our jobs
Yeah.
that when it's time to be done, there's that struggle of what am I going to do next?
Mhm.
And part of I didn't elaborate earlier, but part of my doctorate is this concentration in coaching. And so, I went through ICF program on my own because that's just my type of personality. I want to learn as much as I can about coaching. But we had 3 classes in my doctorate program that we had to do peer coaching each week, like a session each week. And I love her to death. One of my classmates asked me one day, she said, "You talk a lot about being a cop." I said, "Well, yeah, I love being a cop." She said, "But when I hear you talk, you just want to help people." She said, "Why don't you change your mindset of instead of being a cop, you want to help people?" And I never thought of it, and that's made me dive deeper into the coaching. And we'll talk more off air about because I have some ideas for what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is true in that you, myself, we have an opportunity to help in another way now. We're
Yeah.
still giving back. We're still leading. We may not wear, I mean, I'm still in law enforcement, but I don't wear a full uniform every day.
Right.
But, we may not have that Class A uniform on every day, but we're still helping people. And
Yeah.
that's the awesome thing is if we can help people transition or, they got issues going on during the job and help them out before those issues spiral out of control, like that's amazing.
Oh,
And I look back on it, I know you do with 23 years. I mean, I've only got 11. I wish 6, 7 years ago, somebody would have been there and been like, "Hey, bro, like, everything going okay? Like, is there anything we can do to like make this better?" Um, I probably would have not made some dumb decisions I made.
yeah. I think we just get so caught up. Like for me, it was, like I never went to get, like your medical stuff, straight. It's like, oh, if I do that, I'll get med boarded, and I got to do this for 20 years, and it's like, well, maybe there's a redirection there that's supposed to happen, and that's what broke me at the end. It was just like, holy cows, I got this wrong with me, that wrong with me, this wrong with me, and so it's like, okay, let's like make sure we're going in to get that fixed. And, the next thing you know, you're 1,600 and some pages of medical records in your last 2 years because like all the things that were broken, you're really broken then finally. And then mentally you're playing that on repeat and it's just compounding it versus, maybe I should have got med boarded at 10 years or whatever I would have had, with some of the injuries that I had, as opposed to just slugging back, Oxycontin, and bourbon on top of them for, a decade and hiding it, not telling anybody about it and just, working in the shadows. I mean, but that's the thing. Fear hides a lot of stuff. And next thing you know, something catastrophic happens. And I'm just so glad that, no one died from any of the silliness that I probably, the decisions I made or, whatever it ended up being, the impairment I would have had at the time. Um, yeah, it's just now it's all about helping. I mean, I was asking the guys at Bible study the other day, I was like, hey, when you see like flashing lights, like hazard lights, you pull over. Oh no, like this Minneapolis, man, like you don't know what you're coming up on. And I'm like, can't. My conscience is like, they need help. Well, they got cell phones these days. They can figure it out. And it's like, it's more dangerous if you pull over. And I'm like if something hits that 3/4 ton Chevy, I mean, it's going to do most damage unless it's a semi. So I'm gonna stop and see if they need help. And every time it's like, well, AAA should be here in a couple minutes, or I call my brother. But it's cool because like they're literally like happy. They see another person and they're like, well, maybe if they don't show up, like let me call them again, kind of thing. And we just don't know if like the calling is like at that moment to be their guardian angel in human form. And I just, yeah, it's about now. It's just different. It's a different type of help, just like you're talking about, Brent, and just knowing that
Yep.
it it's priceless. It's
Yep.
priceless. Like to be of service, to be helpful. Um, I just think about like as guys get older and older, and you retire and so on and so forth. Like retire. And it's like giving it up. I saw a guy the other day. He was like in the CIA or FBI for like 30 years, and then was sitting on his porch for a few years. Yeah, he wrote a book, and he's like, "This is just not fulfilling." And now he's driving a bus, and I was like, "That's so cool!" Like, because it's just those dynamics of what are we going to do to help out and be of service, and that to me is now it's filling me back up where like I said I emptied it all out.
That's awesome. Where can people reach out to you? Like if they want to do coaching, your educational programs, and where can they get your book at?
Yeah, absolutely. So ourprotectordevelopment.com is the hub of hubs. It's got everything there for anybody who there's a 5-minute morning reset on there that you can get. It's free 99. So it's just check it out. It's what I've been doing 5 minutes in the morning for the last couple of years. It works great. And we're working on getting that in print so we can start mailing those out to folks as well. I've had some people say, well, I don't do any of that digital stuff online. So can you all send me a copy? So we're working on that one. For the books, anywhere you get a book online, if you go to like Barnes and Noble, they could order it, to you. It wouldn't be on the shelf. We're not, quite like Mel Robbins or anything like that, where we're selling like a gajillion books. But I appreciate that everybody has bought one. And for the course, yeah, head to the website, check it out. We're doing Black Friday, knowing that this will come out later, but we're doing a 50% off. So if you know anybody, Brent, out there that
I'll
really
do
want to
you
get into
solid.
it,
I'll make sure it's out by Black Friday.
um, but that helped people out. It's I think BF50, knowing that that's a quick turn. But anyways, yeah, super exciting. We got a lot of other stuff. Got more books in the works. Podcasts. I co-host a podcast with Lisa Sanders. She's a nurse of 24 years and change here in Minneapolis. It's Our Healer, Our Protector, YouTube, all the other places you'd get it, I guess. And it's for really. We're both divorced, so it's a Christian podcast focusing kind of on rebuilding, after you've unfortunately had to go through all of that, and working with the kids and communication or family and communication and so forth. And I guess if you're a social media person, I wasn't a big one until this all took off. And yeah, it's Ryan T. Reichert, I think, on any of the platforms. And then if for some reason, if you queued that in, it didn't work, it's a great license plate. It's Army RT 1978, and that is my Yahoo email from 1990. I don't know, four maybe. No, 98,
That's awesome.
97, 98, somewhere in there. Yeah, but
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, I wrapped this up as something I've been doing that's new. But if today was your last day on this earth, what's something you would pass along to the next generation to make this world a better place?
Absolutely. No matter where you're at in your journey in life, I think about a spirituality standpoint. Some people say religion, but for me, it's, grab yourself a Bible, read those 66 books. You'll find Jesus Christ to become your best friend, and everything gets a whole lot brighter after that. And it took me 45 years and change to have that happen. So, if it can happen sooner in your life, all your dreams can come true sooner, I guess, is the way I would look at it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, you are always welcome back, and thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Brent. Without
Mhm.
your platform, I'm not here. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.